Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for Grieve Love Heal, a podcast by Valerie's House. And we have a really special episode today because right now we're in March, and March is Social Work Month. And who better to interview for this podcast for Social Work Month than Amy Strom, who is the Vice President of Partnerships and Operations here at Valerie's House. And I just want to say welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for celebrating Social Work Month, too. It's an honor.
It is a big deal, and when you go through the Our Team section of the Valerie's House website, you quickly realize how many social workers there are here at Valerie's House. There's a lot. Even our volunteers, our group facilitators. So I feel like social work and Valerie's House, the work that's done here, there are a lot of intersections.
There are a lot of intersections, right? Because when you think about, first of all, in our country today, social workers are the individuals who are providing most of our mental health care within our country. So there's a good chance that for those of us who want to volunteer, give back, and for those of us who really want to make a difference and really provide that critical support for families and children in need, whatever that situation is, you're likely to find a social worker there.
So they're kind of like the first line. They're like the front line
Yeah, we are
providers.
front line of providers. Yeah, absolutely. And I think because of our core values and our ability to provide service and work with individuals where they're at, which also really aligns with where we are here at Valerie's House, you find us working in so many different places.
Yeah, meeting people where they're at.
Without judgment.
That's a very literal term because you're also meeting them where they're maybe comfortable, maybe where they're comfortable
Absolutely.
opening up and sharing.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of positions I've done in-home work too. So a lot of positions you are actually going out to meet them within their environment. We talk about in social work, working with the person within their environment. It's a very critical component. And so it's important that we meet them where they are without judgment. What does that look like and how can we support them? Because again, then we're helping them, provide them with the support. We want to empower them. We need to treat everyone with dignity and respect and value them as individuals. And by meeting them where they're at, that's exactly what we do.
All right, so let's dive into the topic of conversation. So this is all about social work. But I guess I was curious. So I know that you are a licensed clinical social worker, and there's many other titles which we're going to get into a little bit later. But why social work? What drew you to the field of social work?
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and my dad was a social worker. And so I learned from early on the great impact that through his work that he made on so many different individuals. I've always wanted to help and find myself helping, and geared towards working with kids has been part of my career always, but really saw the impact that he made not only on individuals, but also kind of leading the next generation of social workers when he later in his career moved on to working in a university. And so really fostering the tenets that we believe in and the ethics of really empowering individuals to meet their own needs.
I do want to jump out of order a little bit because we were going to get into your work as being a qualified supervisor and your work as a professor at Florida Gulf Coast University in the social work program. I was going to get to that a little bit later, but I didn't know that. So your father, even after his career in social work, became a professor.
He worked many years in social work, and part of the ending of his career shifted from he did a lot of medical social work and a lot of work in sexual abuse, but then went on to work in the university and really developed their field education program at Case Western Reserve, where I went and got my master's as well, and really kind of developed working and helping students connect theory and practice and what that looked like, and helping them be successful early on, and sharing his great wealth as he did with me with so many others.
So it sounded like it was really significant what you saw growing up. Is there a memory that stands out to you, if you could say it without names or anything like that, but was there something that really made it clear, like, yeah, I want to do this too?
I think there were a lot along the lines, it was always kind of giving back and helping. And he always took the time to stop and talk with people, no matter where we were, and see the best in people and see the best in situations. I think one of the more amazing things just recently that was so impactful was really at my dad's funeral, and just seeing how many people he impacted. And again, as social workers, we recognize that we make an impact maybe one-on-one, but maybe as we age in our career, look at different things, right? How many people over time? We don't often see all of the impact that we have. I just think it was so impactful for my sister and my family, my mom, to really see how many people he changed. And because of his impact on them in furthering their career, how many more individuals will be supported.
So it's a much deeper impact than maybe even just those individuals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It must have been really impactful. Were you able to get some of the stories and hear?
Oh, yeah.
Just
So
one.
many, yeah, so many, right? And that's what we said. I mean, we knew how well respected he was and all of those different things. And we saw the impact too within our community. But again, just to hear those stories and then, people just coming and sharing the impact is just amazing.
So we'll get back to the outline that we created, which is the next one is, so we heard about why social work, but also why Valerie's house. I know that you were involved very early on. We just we're approaching our 10th anniversary here at Valerie's house, but you were involved very early on. How did you find out about Valerie's?
So I was working a different job, and as part of one of our tenants is service. And so I really have always found an area where I've given back, not only worked for a financial fee, but also gave back to our community to make our community a better place. I want to be involved in our community and help it succeed and grow and be a great place where I want to live and others want to live. And was introduced to Valerie's house by a coworker and came in and met actually with Angela and the first director and did an interview and came to training and started volunteering. So in 2016 did my first training and first groups and really started and quickly became, I guess, one of the fill-ins, I guess I would say. I was assigned to my own group, but then also became a regular to fill in when other people weren't there, and really kind of fell in love with the work and the mission. And it really isn't a service that individuals know that they need, unfortunately, until they need it. Always dealing with social work, there's a lot of loss and different things that came up working with families and situations, but really recognizing the impact that we can have if we provide that early intervention and help normalize grief and loss in our community.
It does sound like there is a lot that crosses over between your work as a social worker and the work that's done here with grieving children and families here at Valerie's house. There are a lot of similarities in that work. What would you say some of the most common similarities are?
I think a lot of the principles that we've developed here in our peer support groups have come a lot of that from social work, and that we are meeting families where they are. We're non-judgmental. We are really working to normalize their experience and walking with them alongside them through that journey, whatever that journey is for them, and really empowering them to recognize that, our tagline is that no child grieves alone, right? And so really recognizing that we build this community, and that's really what social work is really kind of working with individuals within their community. And we've built a community here at Valerie's house. It is purposely a home away from home for so many of our families in so many ways. We create rituals just like our families have within our own groups, whether it's, we start every group the same way, we eat dinner together, we end every group the same way, whether it's our chocolate meditation or using candles, and celebrating each other outside in a much larger group, holding hands, right? Reinforcing that they're not alone. We have a community, there's strength in numbers, and that when we rely on each other and we build those connections, we're stronger.
So to dive a little bit deeper into the meeting people where they're at, and this being a home away from home, I do feel that and I do see that. What is so important about creating that home feel? Or because this is also meeting people where they're at, meeting people in a place where they feel comfortable. Is that really important for helping them open up and connect? Is that really a crucial part of those connections too?
Absolutely. It's really hard to walk through that door. No one wants to come in that door and admit that they've lost someone. Sometimes we don't talk enough about mental health in our world, and that it's okay to feel all those different feels that we have. And so by making it home-like, it makes it more comfortable. Then immediately kids get stuffies when they walk in, right? There's something to hold. And when they're connecting and holding something, it makes us feel comfort. And when we're feeling more comfortable, more in control of what we're expressing, it's easier to open up and share those feelings with others, especially to, for some of our families whose experiences may have ended in a hospital, may have ended on a roadside or in ways that aren't in situations, I guess, that are comforting, and going to an office kind of seems, I guess, it doesn't seem supportive enough for what they've gone through. And so how can we help do that? And environment really does play a role in that. And so, we talk about all the different things that we have here, right? Sitting together, sitting on the floor and the carpet, looking at all the fun rooms, right? Our butterfly garden outside, from everything from butterfly garden to play. All of those things play a role in how our families experience coming to Valerie's house and being part of this family and feeling those connections.
It does feel like you're not going into a grief support center. It doesn't really feel like a clinical setting. And
Right.
I've heard this from people who say it kind of feels like you're going to hang out in the living room with your
Right.
friends, where there's a couch and there's some weighted stuffed animals and you can dim the lights a little bit. It is so unique. I've personally never seen anything like this before.
Well, we share with people that we feel comfortable with. We share in spaces that we feel comfortable with. And so by recreating that here for our families, it was so important so that they can, because these are hard emotions to talk about. We don't talk about grief and loss in our community. It's kind of like brushed under the rug or brushed behind the door. And it's here we all walk towards that. We all walk with our families towards the pain and help them experience that so that then they can continue to move forward and recognize that grief doesn't have a time limit with it, right? We're going to continue to experience our grief and our loss throughout our lives. But how we learn to then adapt and cope and find motivation and find hope, those are those situations that are important for our families to do. If we can do that together, then that's what the magic is here.
So you spoke about the magic, and I know that's something that probably sticks with you when you can see that magic actually happen. Thinking about memorable moments. So 2016, you joined Valerie's house, and it started in 2016. So year one, you're here, and all the way through now, 2025. It's probably hard to say, like, it's this memory, and this memory.
Yeah.
But when you just think about Valerie's house, what are some of those moments that you always keep that are like the first things that you think of when you think about?
I think about all of the different families that have walked through this door, that have had the courage to come through this door, and that they find comfort and they find support in meeting others just like them. There's so many of those kids that kind of look timid as they're walking in the door, right? And don't know that they're going to be able to share, or their world has been turned upside down. They don't know if they're going to be able to stay in their house, and just knowing here that there's a place where they're going to walk in and everyone has a similar experience. Everyone here has lost someone. Now, their lived experience may be different and their circumstances may be different, but everyone here has lost someone important to them. And through that connection, there's hope.
For a lot of the families, there's many uncertainties in life, but this is one of the constants. And this is one of the things they can rely on.
I mean, when we started in 2016, we said there were 20 kids in one group, and now to think we're in multiple locations across the state and in our forever home, which was just a dream. When, I remember Angela talking about it at the beginning, and we're going to have this great home that's going to be here for the community long after all of us are gone. And here we are today. So a lot of hard work and a lot of positive influence from the community and us sharing our mission and vision and really drawing partnerships within the community to make this become a reality.
I am curious because you saw it in its infancy. You saw it when it was that one group and 20 kids. Did you ever think it could grow to become this, where we're at now? Or I'm sure you heard those conversations, those hopes and dreams. What is it like to see it now with multiple locations And again, the number is over 6,000 total children and families served by Valerie's
Yeah.
house.
I think it's humbling and I think it's rewarding that all those hours, sometimes struggles to find the right words, sitting in silence, listening as kids share their most intimate thoughts and feelings, that it's all worth it and that it's going to continue. And that's what's so important, you know? I mean, you have a dream and it's great to reach that dream and continue that. But if we share this and one new family comes through the door, that's miraculous in and of itself.
So above all else, it sounds like the biggest memories are people showing the courage to come through the door the first time, people and kids showing the courage to share.
Yeah,
Sounds
and
like
really
that's very
seeing their progression and then seeing them switch and becoming those roles of helping the next people. I mean, we have so many, as you know, who are now continuing to either lead groups themselves, come back and volunteer, word of mouth, sharing what they've learned and letting other people know. It is really amazing. And, you know, I remember starting when I first came, we started 2 new groups, and one of them was the dads raising children by themselves, and the other was the sibling loss, and really just listening to what our families were saying and their needs and not being afraid to try new things, and I think that that's also one of the things that social workers do well is that we really actively listen to what people are saying and that we're not there to respond, but we're there to help problem solve and maybe think outside the box. And we could hear that these needs were a little different, and maybe if they connected only with other parents just like them, that maybe they would share and open more. And you know what? To this day, those groups are still continuing and growing and thriving, and we continue to grow and implement new things, whether that's phase 2 or whether that's, you know, having different outings in the community where our families can re-engage because so much of that time while they're grieving, so many things change for these families and really helping them find that courage to get back out there is important.
So it sounds like with social work, there's primarily those one-on-one or more closely related to those one-on-one interactions, but it's also here it's a larger setting, but creating those connections
Right.
where they're helping each other. I know I just from going through the training, you're not the best case scenario for a group is they're sharing with each other and
Right.
you're helping guide, making sure they stay on track on the topics of conversation.
Yeah.
But the best case scenario is they're helping each other, creating those connections.
The peer support group is just that. It's a little bit different than a clinical and therapeutic group, right? Where we're going to have goals and we're all working together. Here, they're really developing a sense of community and working on how to cope and relying on each other and relying on themselves, figuring out what their strengths are and how they can use that to help them be successful.
So the last thing I wanted to focus on here, and let's get into QS and your role at FGCU. QS, I recently learned, that's in your title, after licensed clinical social worker, and then there's a dash QS, qualified supervisor. So that work is very important because you're also making sure that you can help the next generation of social workers become social workers, correct?
Yeah. As we learn in this field, it's always evolving. I think I tell people a lot when they are going into this field, well, I hope that you like to learn and read because new things are always being developed or researched. And it's so important that we stay up with all of that. But it's also important that we share what we've learned and we help facilitate the growth of that next generation of social workers. You know, in Florida, unfortunately, we don't have enough mental health professionals. We really struggle to get enough great mental health professionals. And so if we can work here and I can be part of that process in my work too, that's really important to me to make sure that there are the next generation of social workers who want to continue with passion and who ethically want to work with all individuals and treat them with dignity and respect and help fight their battles and really work to advance the growth of our needs with social justice and advocacy and all of those different components go into social work. So even though we talk about that clinical work, maybe one-on-one, there's so much more to it than just that. And that's really important too, that we understand that and that as social workers, we all belong to and subscribe to this code of ethics that really guides our practice. And it's so important that we continue that and we stress that.
So it sounds like it's a full life commitment. It's not just one part of your life that maybe you go to work and come home. It's like a full, like that's everything that encompasses you as a person.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's an interesting thing that you say. I don't think of social work as just being my job. It's the way I live. And and that is important, right? I treat everyone with respect. I want to hear their stories. I want to take time to help them. Oftentimes, sometimes the people that are forgotten, right? Or maybe that are going through something that they don't even know how to express. And so how can we get them to begin to develop a language? Just like we do our kids here with grief, it's more than just grief and loss. It's our whole world around us.
Being a qualified supervisor, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a step that social workers must go through in order to become a licensed clinical social worker. Is that accurate?
So you can become a licensed clinical social worker and continue to work within our profession. But if you want to train other people underneath you, those individuals who are coming up and who are working on getting their final hours of that work that they need to practice, there's a lot that goes into becoming licensed, a lot of education, and then a lot of hours of practicing the skill.
So if someone wants to train the next generation, they have to train under a qualified supervisor.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then to even go back a step, you are a professor at Florida Gulf Coast University in the Department of Social Work.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that for?
So I've been an adjunct professor since I think 2021. They reached out. They wanted someone to work with and teach their loss and bereavement class, and I was really excited to do that. It wasn't a class that I had when I went through school. I feel that, as we talk so many times, that Valerie's House really is leading the way in how to work with those who are experiencing loss and grief in our community. And so to be able to share not only how we do that here, but also what the research says, and then turning all of that research and theoretical perspectives into practice is something that I've really enjoyed doing. And that's where I started, and I continue to teach classes for the past few years on trauma-informed care and also human behavior in the social environment. So all levels, both master's and bachelor's level students.
That's incredible. Also shaping young minds. I mean, do you kind of see yourself in some of the students? Do you see like kind of the passion? I know you said that Florida is one of the areas where we need a lot more social workers, but do you see like that desire from the students? Does it kind of re-energize you?
Of course, it's a very energetic thing to go in and see their drive and their passion. And I do thrive from that. I think it is important to see that next generation getting excited about challenges that they're going to face. There are many challenges that our country is facing today, and they have the opportunity to make a difference, and really stressing to them that although they're just one person can make such a big difference.
As you said, all the people that showed up at your father's funeral, you can kind of see the impact, even though you may not feel it. I've always thought of social work as one of those thankless jobs where you don't always get the credit or recognition. It seems like sometimes you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, but you go above and beyond, and really the impact, you may never see it, but it is felt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that comes internally, right? Because you're right, sometimes we don't see that impact. You may make a difference, and it may take someone 2, 3, maybe 10 years really to recognize that work that you did was so important. But sometimes we do get to see that magic, and we often get to see that magic here. And that's, I think, one of the special aspects of being a social worker in a peer support group, is that sometimes you actually get to see that success a little bit quicker.
Well, that leads us to the last question, which is seeing that success, re-energizing you, seeing the next generation, helping be a part of the movement of not only training the next generation of social workers, but also helping train the next people who are going to train. We have so many employees who work here, volunteers who come here. And I imagine there are some long days that you experience as a social worker. I imagine your battery or your cup is pretty low, but for them to continue coming here, it seems like it's a big deal. Like it's very important. Why should social workers consider maybe joining Valerie's House, or if they're not here in Southwest Florida, a place like Valerie's House? What is it about connecting here with kids that also can help fill you up and keep you going? Why should social workers consider Valerie's House?
Yeah, I think what you said was very meaningful, because I think as social workers, we do need to take care of ourselves. Self-care is really important. And part of that for me is also service. And I think for a lot of us, giving back helps fill our cup. We get as much from helping others. We learn and listen from them as they get from, hopefully, from what they hear around us. And by really working together and creating a safe space for our kids to grow and to experience life through a different, sometimes, perspective. I think perspective is so important for our kids. You know, they might be in a situation now and their perspective of what happened is very different than maybe their siblings or their parents or caregivers. And so by validating that for them and by creating that space and providing that validation for them of their feelings can help motivate them in the future. And by seeing those small changes, change is often so slow and subtle, but by recognizing them and seeing that, that brings a smile to my face. And I think that's what helps fill my cup, and I think others too. And this really is such a unique place as we talk about, not only is it a home, but I think it's a family, not only for our staff and our volunteers, but also for the family members who come here. And so definitely, if you want to volunteer and get involved, this is definitely a place to come. And you really do get to see positive change and hear some situations that are so difficult, but there's so much positive and good that comes out of really spending time here.
I like what you said about self-care is very important. And being here, seeing those moments can help fill you up and keep you going, because I've been only involved in a small number of groups, just as a group buddy, not a group facilitator yet. But I do know that just hearing some of the kids share was really powerful for me. Like, it felt like such an honor and a privilege to be a part of it. It motivated me to want to be a part of it even deeper. I kind of felt like I was connected in some ways, but I see what you're saying. I've only had just a small glimpse of it, but I can see why that could fit into the self-care category, just being a part of those really special moments.
Right. I mean, we're honored to have the ability to sit with these wonderful families and have them share their thoughts with us. I mean, what an honor that they trust us to share some of these thoughts and feelings with them. And the fact that we're able to, make them laugh at times, at moments when they want to cry too, and accept them for both, because I think it's important that they do both.
It is definitely a rewarding moment. Going into this, I thought it was going to be very heavy. I thought I was going to go home emotionally drained, emotionally exhausted. And there have been a couple nights where I went home feeling like that, but it's totally the opposite. I think a lot of nights where it's uplifting and I feel like, what an honor. Like, how amazing was it that I could be a part of this, that they would trust me enough to share and that I could be a part of it.
Yeah, and that they look for you, right? That connection. When those kids come in the door and they look for you and they see you and they expect you to be there and they want to tell you something. That's what's meaningful in this work, is that you know that through your connections with these families that you are making a difference every day.
So tying that back into social work, are there those moments also in social work where maybe they're excited to see you, maybe there's the hug, and there's those moments that also fill your cup as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think every day, you see those little changes and they come in and they want to share. Like, I was able to do this. You were right. I could do this. You see their confidence building, their self-esteem building. You see them beginning to have more hope for the future, beginning to think about what that's going to look like and how they can find their strength within themselves. We often see them differently than maybe they see themselves. And we often talk about that, right? That's definitely not what social work does. We meet them where they are and which journey they're going to take us on. We're going to go with them. And that's what the important thing is that we can follow their journey.
That's awesome. That's a great way to think about it. I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of this interview. Again, my name is Justin Laverdier. I'm the communications manager here at Valerie's House, joined by Amy Strom, the vice president of partnerships and operations, including licensed clinical social worker, qualified supervisor, and many others. But this has been the Grieve, Love, Heal podcast, a podcast by Valerie's House. I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you.